ever-flowing compassion. Karuna. Karuna. Karuna Murti Bhagavan. So, he incarnates himself in the human form on account of his karuna. That karuna has got special power. It is like a laser beam. It burns all your impurities, however deep they are inside your heart. Just a look of the incarnation is enough to rise your mind. He is self-sufficient. He is purity himself. He is intelligent and ever free. He doesn't have any purpose to serve in this world, just as we always talk about duties, duties, duties. Morning to night we talk and we are not fed up with that word. Duty, duty, duty. You die in duty. God is not bound by these kinds of duties. Why? Because he is complete in himself. He has nothing to attain or not to attain. But then, when the world becomes burdened and there is prevalence of irreligion, the all-merciful Lord, by his own free will, incarnates himself as man to save the fallen and ameliorate the lot of the world. What happens when the incarnation comes? There will be a flood of spirituality. You can feel it. You can enjoy it yourself. That is the occasion for us to be blessed. It's easy to get the light of knowledge through the association of incarnation, and many attain liberation. Though there are various religious paths and number of scriptures and holy places in every country, in course of time, all those ideals become lost. Therefore, God incarnates himself so as to explain the subtleties of religion and to show the ideal. To show the ideal. So you should note that avatar or incarnation is not born as the result of karma, as we are bound by karma. If you don't have faith in God, if you don't practice any sadhana, to develop your spiritual consciousness, then what happens? You are dragged down by your own karma. The doctrine of karma pulls you here and there, throws you here and there, puts you here and there. So you will be in the hands of the karma. You can't get rid of it. This moment you are here, next moment you are there. You are tossed until you become tired. The doctrine of karma is like that. Your actions, your thinking will pull you in so many directions. If your thoughts are disorganized, your life also will be disorganized. If your character is not well formed, your life also will be in the same way. But avatar or incarnation is not bound by this kind of karma. It's beyond this karma. How can you have any ignorance? The doctrine of karma comes into play when you are ignorant. It is the eternal Brahman in his fullness, the Lord of Maya, who descends with the help of Maya. And he returns to his abode, his own state, after the need of the age is fulfilled. All spiritual practices that the incarnation undertakes, all the austerities he undergoes are merely to set an example to others, to hold an ideal before man. So, the authenticity of the practices and the austerities is highlighted in the life of incarnations. Incarnation is God Himself. He is infinity itself. Where can He have any finitude? Swami Chidananda, one of the 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, said, the incarnation of God is a complete and perfect ideal. As much of it as you can comprehend is yours. See? With these words, I conclude my comments on my last class. Ramakrishna has shown the method by which we should hold on to spiritual practices with determination and willpower. We have come to this life we must get liberated. We must get rid of bondage. What's the meaning of bondage? The worldly attraction is bondage. Anything that distracts you, that takes you far away from the spiritual ideas, it is bondage. When the mind is running after things of the world, it is bondage. So, it is a real struggle to get freedom in this very life. But we achieve the goal only through practice, not by simply hearing. It's a hard-earned spiritual practices. Everyone comprehends God according to one's own method of approach. God is vast and infinite. Infinite manifestations of God are there. Whatever our mind grasps, that much we can have. We can't claim that we have known God completely. Sri Ramakrishna tells there are three classes of devotees, worshippers of God. The first type, they always think that God is there in heavens. He is objectified. He is overviewing all our activities. He is looking through each and every action of ours. So, we must propitiate him to get freedom. So they engage themselves in philanthropic activities that may lead them to heavens after this mortal life. Second type of devotees, they believe that God dwells in the heart as the inner controller. It is through God's power everyone is doing, acting. It is God's power only that is working. So he completely relies upon the indwelling Spirit. So he surrenders to him so that he can live the life properly. Third class of people, they think God alone has become everything. There is nothing that is without God. All we see are so many forms of God. Anyway, as I said earlier, God is infinite. How much we can understand through our little mind? Well, what's the advantage we get by seeing God? We get immense peace, immense joy. That's all. Sri Ramakrishna tells, once you see God, see the divine, consciously, from that moment onwards, you will be free from all doubts. Till then, doubts persist in some form or other. Doubts completely vanish only on experiencing the truth. One of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna said, if you remove selfishness from your heart, what remains is only God. So, in one word, the whole thing has been explained. Be selfless. Get rid of selfishness. The reflection of God is always in the mind. That's why we give so much importance for cleaning the mind, to make the mind stainless. Then you will see the clear reflection of the Divine Spirit. The mind should be tranquil and pure for the image of God to be observed. What is the purity of mind? It means mind should be freed from jealousy, hatred, passions, all these things. That is, the mind should be freed from all types of bad samskaras, bad tendencies, which might have come up on account of some reason or other. God is always present within us. But you will not be aware of that presence until the mirror of the heart is clean. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. Yoga is possible when yoga means unification with God is possible only when the mind is freed from all types of modifications. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, today we are observing his celebrated birthday. Chaitanya, you are seeing the portrait here. He was one of the incarnations. Sri Ramakrishna had the vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is the personification of prema bhakti. His life, very fantastic. He used to say, that is verily that. That is to say, God's name is verily God Himself. They are inseparable. That is why when you are initiated into spiritual life, you are given a mantra. It's the name of the divine. By constantly thinking of the divine, you will be having your life's goal fulfilled. You are the master of your mind, and you have to keep it pure. Without purity, you cannot understand religion. You can't enjoy the results of spiritual life. So your responsibility ends there. The rest is God's business. One of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Chidananda, he used to say this: your job is to maintain purity of heart. That's all. The rest will be taken care of by God Himself. You don't have to bother about that. He further said, people sometimes are puzzled. Why there are so many gods and so many goddesses? They are confusing. Why should they confuse? You take God whom you want, that's all. Why should you bother about why other man thinks this way, why this man thinks that way, etc.? Referring to that, Swami Chidananda said, all the gods and goddesses, they are not myths. They are real. They are real. They are the many aspects of one Godhead. Just as sun has innumerable rays, so God has infinite forms, limitless. And Vijnanji, he made this statement and tells, I know this because Swami Brahmananda, another disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, used to see gods and goddesses and talk to them. So, even Sri Ramakrishna's mother used to see various visions of gods and goddesses. Sri Ramakrishna himself had seen many gods and goddesses. So there need not be any doubts. In spite of it, doubts arise in our mind because of our crookedness in the mind. So, the correction is to be made subjectively. Remove that crookedness, then you will have the clear vision. There is nothing that can't be granted by God, who is all pervading and who is all powerful. Whatever people want from Him, He supplies like a servant, as it were. Therefore, one shouldn't ask for anything from Him, but remain satisfied with whatever He is pleased to give. Because you don't know what is good for you when you are asking for. If you ask the gods for anything, they present you with a gift, no doubt, but it is like a double-edged sword. Real welfare lies in using things properly. Wrong use of things brings misfortune. To give an example, God has given this gift of human body, this gift of wonderful intellect, mind, all these sense organs. They are wonderful. But if you misuse them, then the whole thing gives opposite result. So, whatever the misfortune we are experiencing in the life, whatever bad luck you may call, all that is because of using the things wrongly. That's the thing. We don't know how to use the mind. We don't know how to use our sense organs. But we are living the life. That's why you feel lot of crime and sins rampant all over the world. No time for self-analysis. Too much of externalization. As I said earlier, mind is sitting tightly on the worldly things. How can you have real peace at all? Real peace is possible only when you keep your mind on the Divine Spirit. Another disciple, Swami Adbhutananda, said, you are very familiar with the word Maya. We are all under the realm of Maya. Maya belongs to God. But Maya is not God. So you can't say that being guided by Maya is the same as being guided by God. Nevertheless, the ultimate purpose of Maya's guidance is certainly to take the individual soul towards God. The experience of pleasure and pain in this world is given to each individual so that he can cultivate dispassion, so that he can turn towards God. Otherwise, nobody wants God if everything goes according to what they want. Maya is great, and that greatness is God Himself. The name of the Lord itself is Shakti. Shakti, power. The whole creation is full of power. So many varieties of power we are seeing in the world, manifested through so many agencies. God's power and the name is God Himself. Without worshipping Shakti, you can't realize God. That means without uttering the divine name, you can't expect to have the vision of God. It's called Shabda Brahma. God is present in the form of sound. Swami Chidananda ji, another disciple, said, again people keep on asking questions whether God is present in the image, in the portrait. Swami Chidananda said, He is in the portraits and images in a special sense. When you make advanced movements in your spiritual sadhana towards God, you will see that God is there and even accepts your offerings of food through rays of light touching what is offered. In the garden of your heart, sow the seeds of kindness and love. Very important. When spring comes, they will blossom into flowers, red roses of purity and peace. The law of love is a law of the cross. That means the law of sacrifice. If you would love, be prepared to sacrifice. Sri Ramakrishna, whose teachings we are meditating upon every Tuesday, who is guiding us in every manner in spiritual way. He is by you, with you, within you. He is nearer to you today than he was yesterday. Nearer to you than any of your friends can ever be. He is the life of your life, the breath of your breath, your wealth and your wisdom. He is your all. He is your all. So, I have taken only some of the points in order to give my comments. Because Sri Ramakrishna himself, as he mentioned, 3 types of people. Sri Ramakrishna himself had passed through all this. First, he worshipped the image of Kali. Then he had the vision. And afterwards, in the second stage, he felt that Divine Mother was in his own heart. He would always feel her presence. He would tell the devotees, do you know what is inside? Nothing but Divine Mother. So, he had complete unification, identification with the Divine Mother. He always felt her presence in his heart. He would never see any difference between the Divine Mother being worshipped in the temple and his own wife, Sharda Devi, and all the women for that purpose. He would always see the blissful Divine Mother. So that attitude of looking Everyone as the personification of God's different forms that enables one to maintain purity of the heart. So the third stage, Sri Ramakrishna experienced that God is everywhere. He is everything. There is nothing that is without God. God is there in everything means good, bad, wicked. He may be even a thief, but God is there in him also. So, that conception, that vision, Sri Ramakrishna experienced, so he shared those ideas with the devotees and he told them that's the highest experience one could expect. That is, seeing God everywhere. Nothing but God exists. Nothing but God exists. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Upanishad says, everything is verily Brahman. So, let us try to follow his instructions. You feel inspired to go onward in this spiritual path, but you have to take care of all the things required. Maintaining the purity of the heart, cultivating good tendencies, regularly doing practices such as meditation, prayers. These are the method, and to be in constant touch with holy people. To be in a good environment where your mind gets automatically concentrated. You feel a kind of peace, a joy. So all these faculties are important. Well, with these words, I conclude my comments. Sri Ramakrishna has said many things which are useful to our spiritual practice. Every day, number of devotees would come and hear him. They would feel immense peaceful and joy in his company. Particularly weekends, lots of people would take the opportunity to come to Dakshineshwar and spend time with him. Sri Ramakrishna has given number of ideas. It is just like an ocean. We should take how much we can take. It is inexhaustible. Every word Sri Ramakrishna spoke had tremendous spiritual significance. So studying his life itself is a great sadhana for us, for it inspires us to go in our spiritual way. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to the devotees. His arm was hurt. He got injured. So now and then he would speak about the injured arm. But at the same time, he would always speak about spiritual ideas which are very important. So the injury on his body never bothered him. So referring to that, he was talking to the devotees. He said, joys and sorrows of the body are inevitable. As long as you have got bodies, something will be there. Some problem will be there. Some pain will be there. And Sri Ramakrishna observed, God places one sometimes in happiness and sometimes in misery. So when you know the fact, things are like this, then we should be able to get over the effect of that. What is this body? Desire concretized his body. We have taken this body to work out something. So we have come here in this body as if we have committed to do certain things, and we are doing it forcefully. Even though you may not like it, you will do it. Because the inherent tendencies are so strong, they pull you, they force you to commit doing things. Another way of looking at it, pain and pleasure come, unpleasant things happen, causing us suffering. It's true, but suffering is compared to fire. It removes countless past impressions from one's mind. Suffering has that effect. It is eye-opener. It awakens you to the reality. It makes you think seriously about your life. So we see in this world always pain and pleasure playing upon us every moment. This moment I am happy, next moment I am not happy. This moment I am suffering, next moment I am in a different way. So we are pulled alternately between pain and pleasure. So pain is there as an opposite to pleasure. So one who is conditioned by desires and ignorance feels pain. Because you yourself conditioned by innumerable all sorts of desires. What happens is, the man clings to pleasures. What is the meaning of clinging? He identifies himself with body, with the mind. Because of his identification, he causes an imbalance which leads him to pleasure now and pain again in their full intensity. So when you transcend this level, you will find that both pleasure and pain get neutralized, and that's what we should do. That's the real remedy. Taking drugs and having some temporary cure is one thing. But if we want to remove the seeds of suffering, pain and pleasure, etc., you have to find out the method of neutralizing both. Once you neutralize them, you are free of them. So here is a case study before us. Sri Ramakrishna's life itself is there, presenting himself in all aspects. You will see, when you study his life, how Sri Ramakrishna was suffering intensely of throat cancer. But in spite of that suffering, he never lost his balance. He was never imbalanced. He could any moment neutralize. That is the spiritual glory which Sri Ramakrishna had accomplished in his life. He said, referring to the throat cancer, referring to that pain, he said, when his mind is unified with God, that is, when he sits for meditation, the suffering of the body is left aside. No more suffering, no suffering at all. Because he is not clinging to the body at all. He has separated himself from the body-mind mechanism. That's the point. So what are the causes of imbalance? Desires. And ignorance. So the desires and ignorance which cause the imbalance and individuality have no existence apart from the mind. All these things show up on account of the mind. Mind is the forum on which these display. Mind is like TV screen where all these things are showing up. But then mind has no existence apart from the soul. Without the Atman, mind cannot function by itself. Like waves which are not separate from the ocean, although they may each have an individual form. Therefore, the individualized state, with its pleasures and pains, all the suffering and so many things which we perceive in this world, all these things are in mind alone. But the mind per se is unconscious and unintelligent and derives the attributes of consciousness and intelligence by reflection from the soul, which alone is pure consciousness. So it means how the pain is experienced, it is because by the conjunction of the mind with the soul, that embodied state and pain are experienced. And conjunction occurs due to ignorance of the true nature of the soul. And this in turn brings in its train egoism, attachment, aversion and attachment to life, which are classified as kleshas, afflictions. These are the direct cause of pain. If you have to be free from pain altogether, you have to be freed from all these kleshas, afflictions. These again are not to be found in the soul, but only in the mind. Each time there is a perception, feeling, or thought, there is a reaction in the mind, like a wave. And when the embodied soul identifies itself with this, there arises ego and personality with their inherent desires and aversions. These in turn bring into being the causal chain of karma. And one painful situation is the cause of another. So what is the remedy? So many methods are there. Two main ways are given. One is Vedantic approach, the way of knowledge, the practice of discrimination, vivek, between true reality and the apparent one. Renunciation of all elements of the apparent reality, which he finds to be the non-self, and by constant meditation. It is the willful withdrawal of the reflected consciousness from the mirror of the mind waves we can achieve this. This results in the disjunction of the true self or soul from the body-mind mechanism. And the person abides in his own blissful nature, full of peace and free from pain. Such a mind, deprived of its reflected consciousness, ceases to exist as mind and no longer has any relation to personality or ego. Then the question of pain doesn't arise, because where there is no ego, there can be no pain. A modification of this method is given in the Upanishads and by the great sage Patanjali Maharshi in the Yoga Sutras. It consists in the conscious entity, the self, taking the position of a witness of phenomena and being aware that in any perception, feeling or experience, the reality is not to be found in the experience, but in the experiencer. The feeler and the perceiver. That is, what is seen is not the real, but the seer is the real. The conscious self, that is real. What is heard is not the real, but the hearer is real. What is felt is not the real, but the feeler is real. What is thought is not the real, but the thinker is real. He is the witness, the true the inner controller. Thus, there is no involvement in participation of or attachment to the experience, and neither pleasure nor pain will be experienced as such. So the wave of the mind, deprived of the power of the self, will subside and cease to be troublesome. Now, to get into this state, we have to struggle a bit. You have to rise the level of the mind from tamasic to rajasic, and from rajasic to sattvic mode. It's only when you are able to establish well in the sattvic mode, you will be able to disidentify yourself with the phenomena. That is why you feel immense joy and peace and bliss in samadhi. In samadhi state, you are in perfect sattvic mode. Even in samadhi, there are different stages of samadhi. But ordinarily speaking, whatever samadhi you may have, vikalpa, visions of God, the mind is raised to different level of consciousness, so we experience that. So this is one way of getting rid of this troublesome pain and pressure we see in this world, in the life. The second way to cope with pain is by love and devotion to God. Bhakti. One is through jnana, another is through bhakti. You can have any approach. By directing these feelings to God, pain is transformed and sublimated. The mind waves are identified with God by means of a strong feeling of love for Him in a relationship of mother, father, friend, servant, child and beloved. When the mind thus is able to concentrate on God, it becomes pure. So once you have attained that state of purity, you are no more bothered by these dualities. Chitoshna, Sukha-dukha, Labha-labha. All these things, they become trash. You don't care for them. Just you don't care. So Sri Ramakrishna here is giving a wonderful solution, giving his own life in front of us as an experiment. He also lived the life as we live in this world. He also had to undergo all sufferings in the body as we have, but still he maintained his equilibrium. It never lost its balance. We are constantly suffering because we are constantly imbalanced. So, it is very important how you keep your mind in proper position, in upright position. What is meaning of upright position? Either directing the mind to the path of knowledge or engaging the mind in devotional practices, whatever way you want. If you don't do that, then be ready to embrace all suffering. There is no end for suffering, no end. There is no end for anything in this creation because everything leads to infinity. There is no period at all. So, I have given these comments on this most important subject of crossing this pain and pleasure axis. Still some more points are there which I would like to discuss in the next class. That concludes the chapter 18, Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That is the light of knowledge which Sri Ramakrishna has lighted. Whoever studies gospel will surely he will be blessed by Sri Ramakrishna. He will get all that is needed for spiritual progress. In the last class, I was talking about the inevitability of pleasure and pain. The discussion was not complete. I said I would continue it in the next class, so I am just continuing today. Of course, we have concluded the chapter 19. We have started the chapter 20th. But it is very important for us to note that as long as we are bound by body and mind, pleasure and pain are inevitable. Why is it so? Why it becomes inevitable? Because we cling on to desires. And pleasures. We are constantly running between likes and dislikes. So these things cause imbalance. So we get the reaction. I have told in my last class there are two ways to handle this situation. The ways are given. It is not that pain and pleasure are inevitable, so does it mean that we should keep on suffering? No. Ways are given to us and have been clearly shown how to overcome this torture of pleasure and pain. One is by practice of discrimination, by the true, between the true reality and the apparent one. Secondly, by the willful withdrawal of the reflected consciousness from the mirror of the mind waves. This is by the path of knowledge. By adopting this method, we would be able to come out of the mess of pleasure and pain. We would be able to dissociate ourselves from the cause and effect. By the disjunction of true self, our soul from the body-mind mechanism. By abiding in our own blissful nature, full of peace and free from pain. Once we reach that highest level of bliss, there is no more pain or pleasure which we see ordinarily in the world. Here a question may be raised as to what happens to the pain-bearing karma remaining in the mind of a person who has accomplished disjunction or the position of a witness. The answer is that this can't be accomplished until the mind is purged of that kind of karma. That is, the impressions of inertia and indolence, which are classified under tamas, and those of selfish action, ambition and violence, classified under rajas, must have been removed, and only the tranquil state or condition classified as sattvic remains. Again, we may think that since pain is the result of the accumulated karma from the past, resulting from the action based upon ignorance and desire, it might be possible to create such a karma through virtuous and selfless action that eventually one may be free from pain altogether. But pain can at best be only attenuated by this means. For as long as one functions in the body and mind, there will remain some kind of pain. Patanjali, the giver of Yoga Sutras, calls it Gunavritti Virodhaha. It means the interplay and counteraction of the gunas, the forces of nature, which now cause pleasure and again cause pain. The second way to cope with pain is by love and devotion to God, that is through bhakti. By directing these feelings to God, pain is transformed and sublimated. The mind waves are identified with God by means of a strong feeling of love for Him in a relationship of mother, father, friend, servant, child or beloved. The mind thus concentrated on God becomes pure and sattvic. So once the mind is raised to the level of sattvic state, the tamasic and rajasic modifications which cause our pains are overpowered. They all merge in the love, ruling emotion of love. Not that one doesn't feel pain any longer, but pain is accepted with good grace and sometimes with joy as coming from the beloved. For God as the all in all is not only the creator and preserver of the universe, but also the destroyer. And he who gives life and brings joy and happiness is also he who brings pain, misery and death. The true devotee receives both opposites with equal love and grace. Sukha dukkhe same krutva. He looks upon both sukha and dukkha, pain and pleasure, as same. When pain comes as the inevitable effect of previous karma, one should be resigned to God, that is, one concentrates the mind on God rather than on the pain or the ego reaction of depression, frustration, anger, etc., etc. Thus, pain is transformed and sublimated. The pains and unhappy circumstances that may come to a man of spiritual knowledge are like events that happen at a distance and do not relate to him. For he has become detached from the vehicles wherein pain inheres the body and mind. It is as if these were happening to someone else while his true self within is at peace and is blissful. Now, those who have many desires and attachments, they may say, oh, it's a pessimistic viewpoint, for it negates all that they hold dear, the empirical self and the phenomenal world of Maya. And the doctrine of karma makes them responsible for their own limitations and misery, whereas they would rather blame something or someone else, the family, relatives, the state, country, social, economic or political systems, etc. And they are unfortunate victims of a hapless fate. But Maya, which is generally used in the Vedantic language, it's an explanation of the status of the phenomenal world just as it is. And karma is a law of cause and effect working within it. Karma is working within the Maya. For the man of wisdom who knows that the self alone is dear, the Maya viewpoint naturally follows, and it is a happy and blissful one, for what it negates is that which is the cause of misery and bondage, that is ignorance, desire and attachment. There is a famous Vedantic text. It is very useful to study them. Wonderful texts are there to go deep into the subject. Panchadashi, a famous Vedantic textbook written by Vidyaranya Saraswati, one of the great Swamijis of India, an illumined soul. He has dealt with this subject very thoroughly. There he says, Bhogyamichan bhokturarthe shariram anusanjvaret jvaras trishu sharireshu sthita anatvatmano jaraha. Jvara means sufferings. The sufferings of the three bodies. What are the three bodies? Each individual being has got three bodies. One is sthula sharir, gross body, which is visible to every one of us. The other one is just behind the gross, subtle body, sukshma sharir. Behind the sukshma, there is another body. It's called causal body, karana sharir. So the soul is encased beyond these three. So all the individual souls are embedded in these three bodies individually. Karana sharir, sukshma sharir, sthula sharir. Causal body, subtle body and gross body. So the sufferings of the three bodies are caused by the desire of the enjoyer for the objects of enjoyment. These sufferings affect the three bodies, but the Atman is not affected by them. Vyadhayo dhatu vaishamye sthula dehe sthita jvaraha kamakrodhadayaha sukshme dvayor bijam tu karane. In the same Panchadashi, Vidyaranya Maharshi says, the sufferings of the gross body take the form of diseases due to the disequilibrium of the bodily humors. Every now and then body suffers with so many ailments. Desire, anger and the other passions are the sufferings of the subtle body, that is Sukshma Sharir. And the source of both the gross and the subtle bodies and their sufferings is the causal body. So causal body is at the base. Atmanandoktarithyasmin jivatmanya vidarayate bhoktanai vastrikopyatra shariretu jvarakutaha. When the individual soul is recognized to be identical with the immutable spirit, Atman, through the methods given by Mahatmas, no enjoyer remains. How then could there be suffering here in the body? Lord Krishna says in the Gita, chapter 4, Yatheidhamsi samidhognir bhaspasat kurute Arjuna jnanagnihi sarvakarmani bhaspasat kurute tata. Lord Krishna says, all actions, Arjun, they are all consumed when the fire of illumination arises, just as the physical fire reduces its fuel to ashes. If the sufferings affect the three bodies and not the self, then is it a matter of stoically bearing the pains, or do the pains actually disappear? In some cases, the pains disappear or are no longer cognized, and in other cases, especially those of the devotees whose mind is totally given up to God, pains may be transformed into joy. Pain is no more suffering to them. Let us take some examples. There was a famous saint, her name Blank Gammond. She describes her torture experience. She says she was naked from the waist up. Some of the women who did not like her way of spiritual devotional practices, they brought a cord with which they tied her to a beam in the kitchen. Then they discharged their fury upon her. They struck her and shouted, "Now pray to your God." But at that moment, Blank Gammond says she received the greatest consolation that she ever received in her life. Since she had the honor of being whipped for the name of Christ, and in addition of being crowned with His mercy and consolations. She says, why can I not write down the inconceivable influences, consolations and peace which I felt interiorly? To understand them, one must pass through the same trial.